Hey, Zonky the Donkey here. Today we're going to be teaching you how to run an indirect fire squad, which includes mortars and hell cannons, which have come out for the insurgents in the later update. I'm going to teach you some best practices for when you maybe don't want to run an indirect fire squad, and we're also going to show you an in-depth guide on how to use a mortar calculator so you can hit your first shots every time and get some really cool highlights. So let's give you an introduction to the Hell Cannon. It's locked to only the Insurgent faction right now, but it is probably the coolest weapon in the game right now because of its massive kill and wound radius at 20 meters and 40 meters. It's over 300% bigger than the normal mortar, but there's some trade-offs in that it takes 150 ammo per shot, and it's got a more limited range of only 925 meters compared to a 1250 meter range of the mortar. Think of the Hell Cannon as a great area effect weapon with its large dispersion radius. This is great for hitting targets in open outdoor areas, not so much in tight, narrow corridors or streets in urban areas. Now, when we want to compare this against the mortar has some really great trade-offs for its smaller kill radius. It has only uses 40 ammo for 3 shots of HE and only 25 ammo for 3 shots of smoke. And it also has an increased range of 1250 meters. And the great thing is with mortars, every single faction gets them and they're the same across the board. The next thing we're going to discuss is how to hit targets accurately. Now that you understand how the basics of these weapons work, you obviously want to get rounds on target quickly. Being a commander helps. I would always recommend that if you're going to run a dedicated squad. It keeps you near a hab to call in assets, but it also allows you to perfectly spot targets, like I do here where I catch a Logi truck in the open with infantry. They're trying to place a radio. I just basically put an observe marker down and I use an external tool called squadmortar.xyz. It's a great mortar calculator, and it essentially takes all of the guesswork out of mortars just so you can get rounds on target quickly, effectively, and start inflicting casualties. And you'll see this Hell Cannon round here. It lands perfectly right on top of this truck, kills 4 or 5 infantry, disables the truck. So let's walk through how we hit that shot on the Logi truck at the infantry there in the desert on Al Basra. So we're first going to go to squadmortar.xyz, and you're going to be presented with a screen very similar to this. There's a few things you're going to want to do right away. First, you're going to want to pick the map you were on. As a V3, I don't believe Black Coast is in here yet, but the owner of the site keeps it pretty updated. So we're going to choose El Basra, and then we're going to choose the weapon we're using. This works for a standard mortar and these other 3 options here, including the rocket techie, which is very helpful. But in this instance, we're going to choose the Hell Cannon. And you'll see this green circle in the middle, and basically this is your gun. You need to put the location of where your gun is, and in the clip we showed you before, the gun happens to be right about here in D797, and when you do this, it matters to the meter. So you want to zoom in all the way on your map and make sure you are there because the calculations are dependent on the location of the gun and the location of your target. And so you'll see this large outer green circle, and this is pretty much the max limit of your range for the weapon. You notice if I change this to a standard mortar, the circle gets a little bit bigger, and if I change it to the rocket techie, it actually doesn't have it for the rocket techie, but the concept is still similar. For the mortar, it's a lot larger range in the Hell Cannon, and you'll see it shrink here. In the clip, you'll see me put an observe marker down roughly right here. And so if I just double click on the map here, you will see one of these crazy circle things appear. And essentially this is a target marker. And this gives us a bunch of information. Um, I encourage you to go through all the options here. I have all of these enabled, and essentially what this does, it'll show you several things. The blue circle being the projectile spread. So when you fire a Hell Cannon round, it's going to wobble throughout there. It's not going to hit on a 1 meter square target every single time. There's going to be some dispersion in it. I believe we talked about a 26 meter dispersion, and that's what this blue circle represents. The red circle, and this is including the dispersion radius, this inner red circle is the kill radius. So if you were to fire several rounds, you could expect that red circle to be the kill radius of where you hit, and then the outer red circle is the wound radius. Now if I change this to a standard mortar, you see how much smaller this gets, and we're going to talk through what the green grid means in a minute, but we'll focus on the Hell Cannon for now. And so there are the numbers here. So let's talk through what these mean. at the top row, you see 62.9 and 27.2. This is the elevation that you need to shoot at to hit this target. And so, because the Hell Cannon, you can angle it all the way down to 10 degrees. You can shoot it almost in a flat trajectory. You can shoot it at 62.9 to hit the high arcing shot, which is great if there's potentially obstacles in the way. But the trade-off is it's a 17.2-second flight time. This 10.4 degrees here, that's the azimuth you need to point the gun. I would typically suggest you put an observe or an attack marker down on the map, so your gunner just has a more visual reference than that. The second number, 27.2, that's the flatter trajectory. And with this, it gives them an 8.8-second flight time. It's less than just about half the time of shooting the high arcing shot. And it shows you it's a 745-meter shot. So if in that clip, or if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll hear me say, hey, 62.9, send it. And they'll confirm when they fired the shot. And that's the general premise of how you find one target. Now, in this instance, we were actually defending a point that was right here on the southern bridge crossing. I think it was North BCP. And what you can do, you're not limited to just one target area. You can create this huge fire control center where you can quickly pivot between targets. If I just double click on the map again, I can create as many targets at good key points of interest, choke points like these bridges. I can add in, I don't believe there's any limit, and I can just keep adding these in to the fields. And you can end up with this great fire control center where you just need to relay information as you see infantry or as people in command chat relay information to you. All you got to do is put an attack marker on them, or just simply relay and then tell them the elevation they need to shoot at, or you can tell them the azimuth and elevation as well if you don't want to put an attack marker down for whatever reason. So you end up with this really comprehensive fire control center for the Hell Cannon. Now, if we switch to the standard mortar, there's a little bit of a difference here. So one, you'll see this green grid appear, and that's tied to this button, the targeting grid. And what this does is allow you to do a bit more of an area mission. So essentially what this does is for each row, up and down and left and right for the columns, it tells you how many mil radians you need to shift up or down to start hitting there. So if I just wanted to hit, say, this rock, for example, it would recommend for me to hit at 1259 mils. But if I were to decrease my mils by 1 to 1258.2 and then to 1257.2, that's roughly where that would hit. So if I knew there was a large cluster of infantry right here, I could give a command of, hey, fire at 1274, or we'll say 12, we'll get this a nice round number. We'll say 1274.0 plus and minus 2, left and right 2 degrees, because if I wanted to shift left and right, I would shoot at, I believe this would be 26.9 degrees, 27.9 degrees, 24.9, and 23.9. I could expect, after firing maybe 9 to 15 rounds, I would saturate this entire area with mortar. So now let's talk about some other general strategy you're going to want to employ while running your own mortar squad. Number one, you're absolutely going to want your own fob in almost all situations. You're going to want it out of view and preferably in a non-mountainous, nice flat area. Probably a compound is going to work best. You're also going to want to be near max range, near your max effective range to whatever your general target area is, whether that's an attack point or a defensive point. You're going to want to operate near that max range, and the main reason for that is because of enemy counter battery. So when you start firing mortars, it's possible they're going to find you and try and hit you with their own mortars, but if you can hit their objective without them hitting you back, that's a great situation you're in. You almost never want to place your mortars on an active objective where infantry fighting is going on. Number one, because you're probably going to get killed really easily, and number two, you're going to just absolutely run through all of the ammo. And typically when there's an active objective where infantry fighting has happened, it's hard to get logistics in there to get you resupplied. In your squad, you don't necessarily want a full 9-person squad. I prefer a 5 or 6-person squad that gives you, one spotter, a dedicated logi runner or two, and then a couple of people to pull security for you. And this is probably the thing that gets overlooked the most. You've probably had a game where you see someone running mortars and they go, "Oh, infantry on the tubes, infantry on the mortars," and then they kill you, get a couple tickets, and then just take the radio and that's it. So now that you understand how to set up a mortar fob, set your team up correctly, and actually hit targets accurately, let's talk about what you should be doing from there. And let's first go over target selection. One of the number one things you should really be considering is you need to spot for yourself. I see this time and time again in my games on public servers, is that someone sets up a mortar team and then the squad leader just sits there at the tubes and stares at two guys on mortar tubes and is just screaming in command chat, "Guys, I need targets, we're on standby, right? We want targets." Well, that's a gigantic mistake. You need to be self-sufficient. You can't rely on other people. So as a squad leader, go get, a light Vic and take one or two guys with you and go out and become a spotting team. You need to get out there and get eyes on for yourself and confirm. And so once you start, you're in an active area, you need to have some kind of target priority selection here. And so the number one thing you want to find is habs. So if you can find a hab like you're seeing in some of the clips here on Al Basra, you need to just unrelentingly smash it until it's gone, and they're going to dig it back up, and then you keep going. Because if you can keep people suppressed in a hab, you're probably going to take over that objective. Fob emplacements is a great secondary priority. From there, clusters of infantry, I would say, is number 3, and then number 4 target priority would be vehicles from there. It is possible to damage certain vehicles and components of heavier vehicles with mortars. However, typically once they take an initial shot, they are going to move off. There is some great opportunity though. For example, if a tank is tracked, you can get mortar fire on it and essentially prevent it from ever being repaired until your hats or lads can arrive to finish it off. Alright guys, so I've taught you just about everything I know from several hundred hours of running mortar and hell cannon teams and squad. Just remember, you need to be entirely self-sufficient. Be the commander when you can, so you can use a drone or a UAV for additional spotting. Be entirely self-sufficient when it comes to logistics and running your own team. Don't rely on other people to spot for you, and most of all, use squadmortar.xyz. There's a link in the description of the video, and get your shots on target with your first shot every single time and watch those kills rack up. Me and some buddies of mine that run these teams have gotten 50 to 100 kill games before running this. So go out there, have some fun, leave a comment for me, and let me know what you think and what kind of fun you're having with this. Thanks, guys.